Hello and welcome back, marketers. This is 10XMarketer podcast, and I'm your host Girdhari Saran. We dive deep into strategies that can truly amplify your marketing impact. Are you happy with your conversion rate? Is your marketing copy able to resonate with your customer? If the answer to these questions is no, then we may have some answers for you in today's episode. We are joined by none other than Eden Bidani. She's a global figure in conversion copywriter and well-known marketing expert when it comes to incorporating voice of customer into a marketing copy. She has worked with hundreds of tech and software companies globally and helped them incorporate the voice of customer into the marketing copy. Today we have discussed some important topics with Adam, such as how to include your marketing messages into the copy, how to start with the voice of customer research, what are important questions you should ask your customer, where to get started, how to use AI, what are the processes which are very important, when to do qualitative versus quantitative research. These are some of the questions that you might have. These are some of the questions that can help you uncover a great marketing strategies, come up with a better marketing copy that can help you convert more customers, able to connect with your customer. That is the most important objective of a marketing copy of the voice of customer research. So this episode is going to be packed with a lot of actionable insights, powerful tips and tricks, strategies that you can implement right away and get started with your voice of customer research. So let's get into the episode and listen to the insights that Aden has shared with us today. Before we jump into the episode and get started, make sure you follow, subscribe the 10x Marketer podcast on your favorite channels. We are available on Spotify, we are available on Apple Podcast, we are also available on the YouTube channel. So wherever you are listening from, make sure you subscribe so that you can get notified about our future episode. Thank you so much. And now let's get into the episode and listen to Aden.
Hey Gary, thank you so much for having me here today. It's great to be speaking with you about this. So, my name is Eden. I'm a conversion copywriter and a messaging strategist, and I work with companies to help improve both their messaging strategy and their conversion copywriting so that they can acquire more customers more profitably.
Awesome, Aden. This is really great to have you here. So let's start with the most favorite topic that you have, which is voice of customer and including them into marketing copy. According to you, why is it so crucial and how that marketers can incorporate this into their marketing messages or research process?
Yeah, absolutely. So, from my point of view, I mean, working using voice of the customer, it means that you're not guessing what you need to write in your marketing copy, and even how you need to write it. The simple thing is that companies produce great products. They create great products all the time, but then we got really get then when we need to sell it to someone, we get stuck, and so we start to guess. Well, what might someone like about this? Well, they might like the color, they might like how it feels, they might like what it smells like, they might like the box it comes in, they might like the results that it delivers them. So, but when we bring all these maybes into the questions on what they might like, and we're guessing at what our customers like, that means that that forms the basis of what we end up writing about the product. So when someone comes to educate themselves and to learn about what it is that you're selling and how it's going to benefit them, all they get is it's pink, it comes in a box, it's rechargeable. It feels like this like feature list of bullet points, or it's so high level, or it becomes a feature list of bullet points that is all very tactical and practical without explaining what it actually enables them to do or how it benefits them, or it's way too high level and it talks about like improve your life or something really high, really abstract. Um, that's so far removed from what people are actually using it day to day. And so and it doesn't actually explain then how the product works or how it helps them. So when you're guessing all the time, you often we find that a lot of copy ends up being too abstract or is too practical, whereas you really need something that's in the middle that really marries the two of them together, explains what is that overall benefit, but then how that is emphasized in a feature of the product. So to prove that we're not just making up what we're talking about, but when you don't have voice of the customer to guide you, you don't even know where to begin. So it's really it's something that I found just time and time again. It guides you in helping write for your customers, telling them what they really guiding them and showing they guide you and tell you what they need to know, so that your product descriptions, your landing pages, your ads, your emails are very much on point.
That's fascinating because what the concept like performance marketing and D2C has done to us is it has made it so mechanical. Like now you have tools like AI, everyone is talking about product features, everyone is promoting discounts. So there is always some sale going on and nobody is talking about the customer experience. So according, let's say, I'm as a marketer is convinced that I want to start the VOC or voice of customer research. What are the starting points? Where can I get, how can I get started with VOC? What are the initial steps that I have to take? What should I know before I start the VOC research?
Absolutely. So to the best place to get started with collecting the voice of the customer is, and my favorite way is to do one-on-one customer interviews. So this is as simple as sending out an email request. Hey, we value you as your customer and we'd really like to learn more about your experience with using the product. Would you be open to a 30-minute video call to discuss and share your experiences with us? Even putting something in the email saying this is not going to be a sales pitch. I'm not going to ask you if you like it. I just we want to understand how, what prompted you to buy it or what made you interested in purchasing it. We want to understand how you use it, and we want to understand how you would describe the product to a friend. So even give them some context to know that this is not going to be a sales call that they're going to be forced to buy something. You can always offer an incentive, like we'll give you an Amazon gift card. I would not recommend giving free product in those emails because then it reflects the existing relationship that you have, transactional relationship that you have with your customers. So try to pin it on something else that's of value to them that's outside of your product to show that it's not, to give them additional value. Um, and that's the best way. Those 30 to 60-minute interviews are so powerful because it's not someone firing off in the survey the fastest answer that they can get across in the shortest, the fastest they can type in the shortest, in the shortest answer in the time that they have. They're committed to being with you for half an hour or even more, and you get to ask them additional questions, follow-on questions. It's really not static. The conversation can flow. And you really get to earn their trust, and you learn so much. There is so much you can learn within just the space of those interviews. So aside from interviews, though, if doing so is difficult, the best way is to try running a qualitative survey. And when I say qualitative, it's not NPS, not did you like our product. We're not looking for star ratings here. We want to ask them, how was your buying experience? You want to ask them open-ended questions. What did you feel, or what did you experience? How was the unboxing experience? What information were you looking for when you first came to our site? What would you have liked to know before you purchased the product? So all these kind of open-ended questions that provide a lot of rich context. For example, that last question I just said, what would you have liked to know before you purchased the product? That information should go straight on your product page because it's going to help the next customer that comes along that's looking for that information. But the benefit that you have with a qualitative survey um, versus just those one-on-one interviews is that it's much easier to look at to balance out the qualitative data with the quantitative. So you have a larger number of people you can collect responses from, and you can assign more quantitative values to that to have rank. This should be number one. This should be number two. This should be number three. That said, still I find the one-on-one interviews to be much more impactful in terms of helping us get closer to the customer. That said, the other ways to do it, you can not just look at reviews, but look at competitor reviews as well. The problem with testimonials just looking at customer testimonials, you don't know if they were paid for or not. You don't know if an AI wrote it, if a real person wrote it, and often testimonials are really scripted. I had a problem and this thing solved that problem, or it's like, I love this thing, it's amazing, with no additional context. It's very, very, very hard to actually find really impactful or contextual information in customer testimonials and reviews. So the other way to go about this, for example, to look in online forums. So you can go to, what's it called? Oh, the application. It's just on the tip of my tongue. I looked at it this morning. Hang on one second. I'll actually bring up the name of it. It's called, yes, Answer the Public. So you can go to Answer the Public and put in a brand name or a product name and see what people are Googling information about it for, to give you some hints. You can go and look at subreddits. Go to a tool like Perplexity AI and ask it to pull up subreddits or Reddit threads for you, that's where people are talking about the pain that they have or are talking about this product. Then you're really getting unfiltered feedback. The idea is to be a fly on the wall as much as possible when you're trying to collect this information. So try not to be so when you're collecting like large scale information, so trying not to directly influence it yourself, but to take that step back and see how people are talking between themselves about you when you're not in the room. So that gives you a great additional perspective to do that. So there are also specific voice of the customer collection tools that exist out there, but not everyone has the budget for them. Some of them can be quite pricey, but it's enough. I mean, you can get by with Google Meets, Fathom, or Otter.ai to record your calls and get you a transcript. And you can do, even Google Forms for a qualitative survey. You can do it the simple way. It doesn't have to be hard or expensive.
Understood. So there are qualitative research, and then there is a lot of quantitative research and tools available in the market, and people are using both, especially for a like e-commerce or a D2C brand. Getting customer on a call, as you said, you have to incentivize in it in some way, like giving Amazon gift card or some other gifts to the customer. uh, it's slightly difficult for a new brand to get on call with people and say that I want your feedback, because nobody is interested in giving you feedback. They don't even know about you. So that's one challenge that you have. Second is the NPS and other quantitative tools are also fascinating. They gives you some data which might you even help you create the good copy or marketing messages. It's not as if
Mm-hmm.
they don't work at all. Now, how do you decide this is for quantitative or this is for qualitative, or which one to use when? Especially when you're starting up, you're doing your customer research, understanding the feedback, putting across your first marketing copy. Where should your research begin ideally?
So the research needs to happen before you write a single word. That's from my perspective. You can't. It's going to be very, very, very hard, and you're going to be doing double the amount of work, if not more, if you try to write something and then post validate it once it's written using voice of the customer. Um, this is also the same with AI. There are ways that you can still use AI writing tools in your copywriting process when you have voice of the customer on hand. If you're not using voice of the customer, using AI is going to be really, really difficult to get unique, authentic copy out of it. Even if you spend hours trying to tweak the perfect prompt and then edit the copy when it comes out, there are things that come up in qualitative interviews and that come up in these qualitative surveys that you would not be able to collect, that even AI is not going to make up, because AI is basically, it's a calculator but with words. So it's using it uses tokens to make predictions. So it's making a prediction based on how you prompted it. So it's not a perfect science. I mean, it's math, but you have to know what you're putting into it. You have to know what equation you're using, and you have to know what kind of result to expect in order to evaluate the output of AI. So you can't just prompt it and expect it to make up something that even you don't know, because it's only going to take what's from the common denominator of everything that's out there on the internet. But when you get in a conversation with someone, they use these really, really rich words and phrases that you would never even as a marketing copywriter, you can't come up with them yourself. So I'll give you an example. One of my favorite examples is I was working with a luxury bag company. So they made these beautiful luxury work bags for busy professional women, or working women. A bag that was elegant enough for them to take out to professional, meetings and to the office, but then it looked nice enough for them to take it to go out to lunch or go out to dinner afterwards when they were on their way home. So it was a very versatile bag, but when we arranged, I said the first thing we need to do is we need to have these customer interviews. It's going to be very, very hard to upgrade your content and your copy if we don't do that. So when we did that, and one of the very first interviews, I remember the one was describing, I said, what kind of bags did you use before you purchased this product? She said, oh, I just used any old mom bag. I said, a what? A mom bag, she said. I said, what's a mom bag? And she said, like an old bag that like it's big, it looks ugly, but it works. Like it's got enough pockets, or it's got enough pockets, or it's strong enough, like it works, but it does the job, but it doesn't make you feel good when you're carrying it around. I was like, I've never heard anyone call that kind of bag a mom bag before. And that, of course, made it into the marketing copy that we used. And it really, we found that it resonated with a lot of people. It's like, oh, we said like a mom bag, and people said, oh yeah, like I know what you mean. So it was a phrase that I couldn't have even imagined. I never heard it even before when I spoke with this. But as soon as she said it, I understood immediately what she was talking about. I understood it was a very emotionally charged phrase, and it's two words, mom bag. What do you mean by mom bag? Like, how would you ever know what that means? So just by asking that question from one person, even found something that not even AI could have come up with, because it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It exists in this customer's world, but it doesn't exist on the wide expanses of the internet. So that's just one great example for how different it is and how important it is to collect that voice of the customer.
Great. So even I will, right after this podcast, I will also try mom bag in the any AI tool, and see what kind of answers it comes up with. And I also challenge people who are listening to this podcast, go ahead and try AI uh, and see what mom bags really means for them, and then you'll understand how it is, like how far it is from the real world when we are using the AI tools. Now, the other important aspect, I mean, I understand the importance of asking questions, reaching out to the customer, giving getting the valuable feedback. But when it comes to actual execution, most marketer I have seen, even I am hesitant in talking to the customer, understanding the feedback, because that looks like a challenging area for most people. They don't want to go ahead and like really talk to people before they have the product in hand. uh, I mean, there is some hesitance when it comes to actually talking to the customer. Now, how do you really address that when you're starting this kind of conversation, especially if they are your customer, if you're working them as a freelancer or as a marketing person? How do you really convince one the organization, and second your marketing team, that yes, this is very important, you have to go ahead and talk to the customer? This is the only way you can understand what they really feel about your product.
Absolutely. So the first thing is I give examples like the one I just gave you about the mom bag. It's like we don't know what our customers are saying. You don't know what your customers are saying or what they really think. So we need to find out what they really think, because if we can write for how they think, then the copy is going to connect with them, and they're going to really connect deeply with the product. They will feel that, wow, this company gets me. They really understand what I'm looking for, and the copy will, and what it describes will resonate with them, and they'll be far more likely to go ahead and convert and finish that purchase. Even if other things happen, even if they still have to go through, sort out shipping and handling, delivery times, there's all those other things. The deeper the emotional connection you can make with them earlier on in the process, the more that will help keep them motivated to even get through, even if other things in the process break or don't flow as smoothly further on as they through the conversion process. So that's one thing. Um, the the second way that I tell them is to, I mean, it can be, I understand the hesitations with interviewing people. The more you do it, the easier it gets. That's the only thing I can say. Like any new task or skill that any skill that you're trying to develop. The trick is though to remember that this is not actually to learn about your product. They might tell you things about the product. This is not to ask you, do you like it or don't you like it? If you need to do that, then you run an NPS survey. No problem at all whatsoever. But don't be afraid of constructive feedback. And I'll even give you another example in a minute. It's not for e-commerce, but it's for a related industry. But don't be afraid of collecting that feedback. If you're going in nervous because you think people will get angry at you, then maybe that's a meeting that you really need to have, because maybe there's something that maybe the product is being oversold in the copy and people are disappointed with it. So find out why, so then you can make those changes to the copy, or you can make those changes to the product if you're still in early stages and do that product development. Now is the best time. What's that saying? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So if you take that feedback from customers now and use that to improve the product, then you can save yourself a lot of heartache in the future. Putting your head in the sand, digging a hole and putting your head in the sand is not going to help you move forward. And at the same time, if there's frustration, so maybe the copy was hyping up the product too much, like it does a lot. It's going to make your life 1,000 times better. And people open it and it's like, well, it's a face cream. It's not made my life 1,000 times better. It didn't fulfill the promise that was in the copy. So how can you adjust those expectations so that you don't get negative feedback, and that you don't get churn, and that you don't get refund requests all the time? So if you're nervous about doing that, ask yourself why, and be honest with yourself as to why you're nervous about it. If you're just nervous about talking to people, remember, you're going to be talking maybe 10% of the time of this call. The idea is not for you to talk, the idea is to get the customer to talk. So if you have a bunch of questions on hand, you can keep prompting them gently. You can ask them. It's not supposed to be a platform for you. It's meant to be a platform for your customer. And they should be talking most of the time. If you're doing the talking, then it's a sales pitch. So, or you're trying to convince them that the product is good, or you're trying to make excuses. This is a learning experience. And so I'll give you an example of that. When I was working with a SaaS client, a software client, a few years back, they created a video platform that was very similar to Vimeo, or what some YouTube features, what YouTube gives to creators. But they created their own version of it, different operating system, really cool. So they were redoing their website and they'd never done customer interviews. I said, well, this is the best time to do it. We don't know what information we need on the site, what pages we need in the navigation, even if we don't know what information people are looking for, or what they care about. So I arranged these interviews with their customers, and he all had enterprise clients, and each of the had 6 interviews, if I'm not mistaken, and each one of his customers said, I love the CEO, he's a great guy, but I don't like the product. And I went, oh my gosh, I felt so bad for the client, my client at this point in time. I was feeling terrible. I was like, wow, how on earth am I going to take this information back to the client? Basically, everyone said, yeah, it does these things, but this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. And I was like, it blew my mind. And so when I took all this information back to the CEO, I said, listen, the good news is that they all like you, but they have a lot of constructive feedback. And I started listing other things. And by the time I got to the end of it, the CEO, he sat back and he let out a big sigh of relief. He said, you know what, that's okay, because I don't like them as customers either. And it was like, wow. So it was that moment when he realized that, so these people aren't even a good fit for my product anyway. So that led to a whole shift in the product, in how they price it, in who their target audience actually is. And they would not have come to this realization if we had not done those interviews. They would have been in this, like, I'll be nice to you, maybe you be nice to me. Like, they completely skipped that whole process of dragging it out for a few more months or years, and who knows how long it would have gone on for. They've good product, better product today, and they have better customers today. So it was just wins all around.
Great. So, guys, just one thing. If you have to interview your customer, you have to follow the way I am doing it right now. Just smile and nod your head. You don't have to talk much. Let the customer talk more, just like I'm doing it with Adam right now. So, the next question, Adam, you have given a great example. I need one more example so that people understand it clearly. And this time, if it is from a D2C brand, it would be much more relatable for my audience rather than a B2B customer. So if you have an example to share, that will clear a lot of misconception people have about VOC. So we have to find out what are the VOC founding findings and how it helped you create a better marketing copy and communication. So if you have a D2C example, I would be much more grateful to you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. So the another example that I like to use is going back to the same, excuse me, the same case where I was talking when I was working with the luxury work bag company, the professional work bag company. So when I was interviewing, still when I was interviewing their customers,
The
one of
mom
the things
bag.
that they said, yeah, going back. So one of the things they also said was, yeah, during I asked them, so was there anything you would have liked to know before you purchased the bag? And so many of them said, yes, I would have liked to know if I would have to pay an import tax on it because the price of the bag wasn't cheap, and it was really on the line as if including shipping they would have to pay tax on it or not. So they actually went out of their way and they had to call or email the company, which was in Europe, to try and get this information from them. It wasn't on the website. I said that's something that almost everyone wanted to know. All you need to do is put that in a bullet point of the product description saying, if you're in the US or if you're here, no, because if your purchase is under X, you do not need to pay. If it's over X, you will need to pay. Like very, very simple. And it was such a relief for them because then they don't have to try and find that information somewhere. They don't have to spend time Googling. They don't have to email the company. That puts the burden on the customer to find that information. But instead, we were able to put that information directly in the description. Boom, it's right there. And like I said, it shows the customer that you understand what they're thinking about. You understand all the other things, the points of consideration that go into their purchase experience. So it shows that you're thinking about them, and it's going to be they're more likely to convert, and you've reduced that friction during the process.
So, Adin, you gave us two examples. One is from B2B and another is from D2C. Another area that we talked about before I started the recording with you is anthropology. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. You can help me
No,
do
you've got
that.
it. You've got it.
How does it connect to marketing? how how does it connect to marketing? How marketer have to start thinking like an anthropologist, and how does that help in building a better customer relation?
Absolutely. So the difference. So for example, a lot of people in marketing and sales, they obviously talk about the use of psychology, and we see psychological references come into a lot, informing a lot of what we do in terms of marketing and sales. But anthropology takes a very, very, very different perspective. Anthropology says there is someone out there who's different to you, and they have a different view of the world. They see the world differently to how you see it. So if you take that little bit of effort to understanding how they see the world, then you will know how to communicate to them in a way that they will understand. So because if you can do that, then there's no reason for them to not convert unless, it's out of their price range or other considerations that don't come into it. Because when you communicate with someone in a really authentic way, it's much easier for them to understand what you're talking about and to make an emotional connection with the product and what you have to sell. It's the classic example I like to give is like, I see the sky as being blue, but someone over there might believe it's purple. Blue and purple might be the same word for the shade of color that we're talking about, but they call it purple and you call it blue. You can't shout at them, the sky is blue, the sky is blue. You're not going to get them to change their mind. You have to start from their point of view saying, yes, the sky is purple, in order to be able to communicate with them. So you need to come to them from their perspective and reach them. Again, you're not going to by far, you're not going to force them to change their perspective by trying to convince them. No matter no matter how big a discount you give, and no matter how many reviews you have, 5-star reviews you have, if you're still trying to shout at them, the sky is blue, they're not going to buy that. They're not going to understand that because they don't believe the sky is blue. They believe it's purple. Even so, your job is to show them that you're talking about the same thing. Your job is to show them that you understand their perspective. It's not to try and forcefully re-educate them or get them to change their mind.
True, and the sky is actually black, so it's like everyone has their own perspective.
Exactly.
But in their
Exactly.
mind, if it is blue, it's blue, and if it is purple, it's purple. Now, the other aspect of VOC is like questioning technique. So one is obviously you can frame the questions and then you go and interview a customer. There might be a lot of follow-up questions that comes when you actually start discussing things with people. How do you really structure the question? What are the right techniques? Should it always be qualitative questions, or you want to include some quantitative, like rank my product experience or something like that in a VOC
Mhm.
interview?
That's a great question. So for the purpose of the voice of customer interviews, you're not looking to rank your product or to collect that kind of information. You can ask them about what we're really looking for is context. So the rank is arbitrary. People are not going to be able to tell. It's going to be very different. Each person sees it differently in a different way, just exactly like we talked about. Each one is going to have a different system for ranking and different factors they use to rank that. And by you forcing them to use your system, it might not work with the system or the ranking system or the factors that they evaluate in their mind. So one that you can, so I do try to leave the questions open-ended as much as possible. You can use some short questions to break the ice in the beginning. Hi, how are you? What's your name again? No, I'm joking. I know it's written on the calendar invite. Or even, how is your day today? Or what did you do today? Or, did you purchase a product or someone purchased it for you? You can give them shorter questions and in the beginning to help break the ice and ease them into a conversation. But we're really looking for is context. So asking them, what do you use the product for? Or how do you use the product? Describe to me how you use the product. It doesn't even have to be a question. It's like, give me a statement. So that kind of question, it's like, well, I'm not telling you how to use the product. I want you to tell me now you've got it at home and you're using it. How do you use it? Explain to me what's your routine, how it fits into your day. And you'll get like a 5-minute answer to that question because they'll start talking. And if you stay quiet and you just show that you're listening, they will also keep talking to fill in any pauses or any silences in between. So they can, one question can easily turn into a 5-minute answer. Um, or one of the other questions I like to ask is, how would you describe this product to a friend? And it's great. And suddenly they have to think, it's like, well, this is how I talk about it to a friend. And that's such a great, and you usually take that word for word and use that as a product description. It's usually like the best. It's so qualitative. Like they explain it in great detail and the emotional connection that they have to the product comes out. Or what is the most important thing that this product does for you? So you've narrowed it down for them, but you're still giving them a chance to respond with how they see the product. And so, this, I know it can be very difficult to not be asking yes, no questions. Do you like it? What do you want to change about it? Things like that. We're not looking here for necessarily qualitative feedback about the product. We're looking necessarily for that context around the customer. So it is the customer. You will get feedback about the product. It's going to happen, and we'll get information, even some questions that from the customer they might be able to answer. You might hear some of the objections or things or problems they have with it, but that's part of the normal process. Um, but then again, now that you know what their questions are or their objections are or the problems that they have, you can then take that information back to the relevant department and actually use that moving forward. So it's not, if we, if we try to ignore it, it's going to come and hit you at some point in the future. So better now, and that you're aware of it, and that even put it on things on the product development roadmap, or know what you want to change now and in the future in order to solve those questions. It's a lot of practice, and again, the idea is that you're not going to be talking much during these interviews. We're not supposed to talk a lot at all. You're supposed to give that customer the platform to hear them.
Great. So another aspect of this is like there are two important questions I have, and you can answer them one by one. One is how much personal information you want to collect in a qualitative interview. The second question is one product, there might be 10 different use cases for that product. Let's go back to the mom bag example or the luxury bag example. The same bag, there might be different use cases for a home staying mother. There's a different use case for a working woman who is going to
Mm-hmm.
office every day, a different use case for a businesswoman who has to go to parties and carry that as an elite bag. So how do you really segment your customer to understand their mindset, understand their world from their views, and then really get the context in which your product is used, and then they may be able to describe it better. So how do you really come up with that segmentation, and how does your question differ when you come up with different segments of questions?
Absolutely. So the question that I usually ask them as early on in the interview as possible, in order to segment them and know then how to align their answers with the different use cases or user groups, is by asking them. So not only asking that, I ask them, so what do you do? So what do you do? Like day job, or leave it almost an open-ended question. Again, what do you do in your day to day? And they'll tell you, I'm a mom, or I'm a mom, I'm a businesswoman, or I do both. I'm a mom and I work. And so they give you that additional context themselves. You want to let them fill in the blanks, because even though they might put down on a form, yes, I'm a secretary, or I'm a this, or I'm a doctor, or I'm a lawyer, it doesn't really matter. Doesn't You want them to hear from them what they wouldn't put on the form, or give them that space to continue saying all those other content, give them the contextual information that you might not get if you're saying, what do you do day, what's your day job? They would tell you their job. They wouldn't tell you everything else that's happening outside of that, but the other use cases that they'd use it for. So aside from asking that, what do you do in your day? What's your day to day like? To give you an idea of what the use cases that are applicable to them, it's also again, back to the question, what do you use this product for? Or when do you use this product? So that's going to give you an idea as to what situations they do use it, again, which use cases are applicable to them, and then you can make sure you're asking questions that align with those two different, there's two or more different types of use cases, or that when you go back to look at the transcript, that this is how you need to pull out their answers and align them with the different user groups that you have.
No, Eden, let's say you started with the VOC research. One of the objective of the marketing copy is it has to be friendly with the customer. It should sound like a peer-to-peer communication, one-on-one communication, not an authoritative tone, which is mostly seen in marketing copies these days, which are AI generated. How does VOC finding help? How do you start picking certain things? Is it like one customer has said something which becomes slightly more important, like the mom bag example, or is it like everyone has a perspective and then you try to build some common themes in your copy? How do you really translate the VOC finding into a customer friendly copy?
Exactly that. So exactly what you said. I use the voice of the customer and start collecting it into different themes, so that you have a clear idea of, so these different buckets. So pains people experience, desires that they have, benefits, or the value that they see in the product. So not only bucketing the information across these, or segmenting the information across these different topics, but you can also take the transcripts and information that you have and put it into a tool like ChatGPT and ask, give me, bring me a table, make it into a table or a highlight. What are the top 5 to 10 common themes, use the information that I'm going to share with you, and pull out the themes, and then give, use a customer quote to support each of these themes that you reference. So you can do things like that. And that's a good use case, again, for ChatGPT or AI writing tools. When you come to do the marketing copy, it can take that information and collate that very easily for you. It's great at taking lots of information and crunching it down into something that's understandable. So that is going to help you go a long way in making sure that, so talking the themes and the voice and that tone of voice come through from the interviews that you've collected, instead of you trying to make up a voice in your head and then trying to use that to for all the marketing copy.
Awesome. So far, the entire discussion has been around marketing copy and marketing communication. While VOC is like VOC findings, obviously, are very important for other areas of the business, which is one is obviously the product development, which is an area which VOC can really help with. Then you also have customer service. So when you, let's say, discover some product use cases, or so some not so great use cases or findings, the common problems or pain point people have with your product, how do you really inculcate that entire finding into one in the product development process, and second maybe into the customer service area also, because there might be certain common objections that you can pool in a bucket and put it as like common answers or like
Mm.
usual answers to certain queries. How does that translate from one to other?
Absolutely. So usually, as part of the process, I do also, as part of the VOC process, I do try to talk with customer support or customer success team to find out what are people emailing them about, what questions people are asking, so get an idea of what they want to know. So not just hearing that from, not just trying to collect that information from the customer, but hearing from them, and then trying to use the voice of the customer to help answer those questions as well. So that's also, it gives you an additional perspective. But like I said, the voice of the customer, it informs product, it can help inform product development. Take the information back to the product team, say, talk with them. What are we working on currently? Do we have things in the roadmap? Were you considering changing things? And then there needs to be a conversation. It's the idea is to spark a conversation about what's the direction we're going in and how far ahead we're looking forward. So yes, there are objections that customers have about the product or problems that they have, but that's planned that's in the roadmap. It's already in production. So okay, it's not an issue. It's going to be fixed. So it's not something you need to be worried about. But then you know that the product is actually matching customers' expectations of it. At the same time, and you take the voice of the customer and you use that to, and like we said, use an AI writing tool to create the general themes that come out of it. You can go to product and say, are we working towards these general themes? It doesn't necessarily, a customer A said, I want it pink. Customer B said, I want it in blue. Doesn't mean you have to make a pink version and a blue version. It doesn't mean, and those were just customers. You have to validate that quantitatively before you go and make radical changes like that to the product. But are you introducing color selection at some point? If that's on the chart, great, then you don't need to worry about that because that's being taken care of. If color selection wasn't considered, well, it might be important. It seems to be important to people, so we need to do some more research. We need to ask people what kind of colors they prefer. We need to do some general market research to try and figure out what people like, and if we do need to offer. There's also a brand consideration that comes into it. Do we want to introduce colors, or are we sticking with one color because this is tied into the brand approach, which is a strategic business decision? So the idea is that it's not necessarily going to means that tomorrow you have to change, throw the product out and start doing it again. But the idea is that it's going to create those conversations that need to be had, those strategic conversations. Every quote that a customer says in an interview or in a qualitative survey, that's a data point. It's a data point that you can use to help inform these discussions. So it's not just, well, I have a feeling that maybe customers might want to choose the color of the product that they have. And it's like, well, no, we have, people keep saying out of the 10 interviews we had, 9 of them all said that they wanted it in a different color. So we should probably consider introducing different color variations. What those should be, how many variations, that's something that needs to be validated. But it at least gives you that direction, and it points you, it might highlight something that was never considered previously. So the idea is to have those, that it sparks those conversations. And you can take, for example, all customer objections back to customer success and ask them, you know, do you have anything else to add to these, or how do you typically answer these objections? Get the answers from them and make sure that goes into the frequently asked questions on the website. That saves the customer success team, a huge headache, and it makes the customers happier. So the idea is that it's used to inform a lot of strategic decisions throughout the organization. It's not just with marketing copy. That's where it usually starts from, but that's not where it ends.
That's a fascinating answer. I think we have done a lot of good recording so far. Now, everyone's favorite question, which is like everyone wants to know these days, is how AI or artificial intelligence going to have an impact on, especially on the human-led VOC research? Is it going to stay in moment, or is it something, there might be some AI tool coming which will automatically interview people and get insights out, and you human intervention is not at all required? How do you see this progressing with all the AI noise that is happening right now?
Uh, yeah, that's a very interesting question. There's a lot of considerations that go into using AI tools. Um, like one of the expectations for people is that they expect to talk to a human. So if you're trying to get information from a human and you're not letting them even speak with a human, so that can create a lot of distrust in the relationship in the very beginning, even before like you started having the conversation. If they can tell, whether they can tell if it's AI or not, that's also an ethical consideration. Ethics come into this. It's a huge thing in anthropology. For example, in anthropology, when you have a customer interview, when you're doing an interview with a subject, you can't, the transcript has to be non-verbatim. Sorry, has to be verbatim. That means every pause for breath, every time they trail off in a sentence, every time that all has to go into the transcript. You can't just magically edit those things out to make it easier to read. No, every pause for breath, every stumble, every stutter, every every has meaning. So that has to go into it. So AI often glosses over things like that, or it'll edit it out, or it'll replace a word with something else that it thinks. But maybe there is a reason why the customer stopped talking. What were they feeling? What were they thinking at that moment when they paused, when they couldn't articulate themselves, when they trailed off in a thought, when they got distracted? Like, what was happening? There was something happening to this person. This is a real human being, something happening to them. And AI does not have all those nuances and can't interpret those. You need a human to interpret what the other human is doing. And with that said, the because collecting voice of the customer can be difficult, and because interviews can be difficult, doing them is going to be even much more of a competitive advantage now. So if you take the time to do that, I mean, and everyone else is using AI just to generate their copy. I mean, you take one customer interview transcript and you put it into ChatGPT and you tell it to give you the key points out of it, you can create a whole marketing campaign just out of that. But if someone comes with no idea to ChatGPT and says, give me an idea for copy, they're going to get 50% off. They're going to buy one, get one free. They're going to get feel good, look good and feel good. And it's like, all the things that everyone has heard before. Everyone is using the same prompts, the same tools, and they're getting the same things out of it. So if you bring something that's unique and interesting and different, you're going to position yourself so way, way, way ahead of everyone else that's saying the same thing. I mean, with everyone is bombarded by so many different ads and messages these days for I don't remember what the stat is. It's like we see like 10,000 ads a day or something like that. And no one pays attention to that because they don't even know that they're seeing that many ads anymore, because we've built these internal blockers that we don't see them. Um, we literally feel like we don't see them anymore. We don't want to pay attention to those things. So, when
Yeah,
you
your
have a unique
brain
message,
is
though, you
designed
can get
like
through to
that. It can simply ignore something.
them. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. You
true.
can get through to them.
Now
You can
the
reach
other
out to them.
important aspect, I think, great, Eden. Now other important aspect, I think, that we when it the topic of AI comes in is, and when specifically the human interviews we talk about. So far we have been talking more about what they say using the words, right? When you're interviewing
Mm.
people, get to see a lot of facial expressions, their body language. How do you really document that part into your VOC? Is that something that really makes sense to document, or you don't have to worry about it at all?
Oh, are you there? Are you there? Sorry,
Yes, yes,
I
I'm
think it
here.
cut out for a second. Okay, no problem. I think it cut out for a second. At the last,
Yeah, we'll
could you
cut
please
that part.
repeat? Sorry, could you please repeat that last question?
Yeah, let me ask this question again. We will cut this part, then we'll start the question again. So my question is, the visual cues, the body language, it becomes very important when you are talking to somebody one to one.
Okay. Sorry, it cut out again. Your screen cut out again for me. Sorry, could you please repeat that question again?
Yeah, are you able to hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, so let me repeat that question and then we'll cut this part out from the podcast.
No problem. No
My
problem. All good.
question is, yeah, my question is, when you're interviewing somebody, you look at their facial expression and the body language, which is in addition to the answer that they give you. How do you really inculcate this into your findings when you are really documenting this thing after you have done with the interview?
Absolutely. So as soon as the interview is done, first of all, you should be recording the interview anyway, not just to get a transcript, but you should have a copy of it on hand because you do want to see the customer's face expressions, body movements, things like that, and make a note of it at the top of the transcript. Put in or when there were specific questions, and put in even in brackets next to it. Customer was seemed to be angry. Customer seemed to be anxious. Customer was very happy. Customer was very excited, customer was relaxed, anything like that. As you go through to some of those certain responses, you can put it off and you will see that their word choice has changed in how they respond to the question. And that as you're rereading through the transcript, you'll understand, okay, it really sounds like they were unhappy, or it sounds like they were sad, they were angry, they were confused. That will come through because as a result of your specific word choices that they made in answering those questions. But you can also add to yourself. You could even take a screenshot of their face and put it in the transcript next to the question, even things like that. But there are tools like I use Fathom, Fathom.video, which is, and they have a free version, which is great. But it has a timestamp related to the question, so you can go back and forth and so you can go and see. You can always go back, switch very easily from the transcript to seeing what their face looked like as they were answering that question.
Awesome. So now, Adam, this is the last question of our interview. Uh, those people who are convinced by hearing your voice right now that VOC is very important and they have to start doing VOC right after this interview, what are the first few practical steps that they can take in coming week after they have listened to this episode?
The first thing I would say is to send an email to some of your longest running customers. So if you have subscription customers, or you have some customers that purchased from you recently, and they've already received your product and they've had a little bit of time to try it out, those are the kind of people that you want to talk to first. So because they see the product, they see the value in it, especially the subscription buyers, they keep buying it. So they must really like it if they keep if they keep getting it on subscription. So we want to hear what their feedback is, because you want more of those high value customers. Those are the first type of people you're trying to target. So understanding their perspective is going to be super important. At the same time, you can also look at your churn lists more, and or retention list, who's churned recently. You can always reach out to them. That's again a more difficult conversation to have, but it's like, we'd like to hear your feedback. What wasn't working so well? No, it's not. This is not going to be a sales pitch. We want to hear from you. What was your experience, and what impacted your decision to stop using? So again, not trying to force them back into a sale, but it's important for you to know why people don't use the product. They've got it to expect. It's not just about the price. What didn't they like about it? Again, those things can be used to form the product strategy, or even the marketing. Again, was it a mismatch? The marketing was being oversold and the product didn't meet their expectations. It could just be, no, I didn't like the smell. And that's nothing to, it doesn't mean that you need to change the fragrance in the product just because, some people change because they didn't like the smell. It's a personal preference. But you have so many more people who get it sent to them once a month because they love the smell. But so the first thing I would just do is to reach out to those high value customers as early as possible, as quickly as possible. In the very first question in this interview, I gave like almost a sample script for what you would ask them in an email. We'd love to hear your experience with using our product. This won't be a sales pitch. We're just going to ask you some questions about how you use it. When what was your buying experience, and what your personal preferences are. That's it. And then, like I said, you can always offer an incentive. Are you available for a 30 to 40-minute Zoom call? No problem at all. So that's the very first thing that you can start doing.
Great, Adam. So it was a fantastic chat. And thank you so much for joining me today. It was lovely chatting with you. And thank you so much, guys, for listening to the entire episode. Make sure you subscribe to us. We are available on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening from. Thank you so much, Adam. It was really great having you here.
Thank you as well, Gary. It was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.